The New Madrid Fault, it runs from the tip of Mississippi up into southern Illinois along the Mississippi River. The last time a damaging earthquake happened there was in 1812.
Earthquakes in Tennessee yesterday. Is the St. Louis area next?
In the heart of America lies a frightening and enigmatic power that has been inactive for nearly 200 years. But now, it's on the edge of awakening. The New Madrid seismic zone, known for its history of strong earthquakes and devastating consequences, is showing alarming activity. Scientists are closely monitoring the shifts in this tectonic plate, suggesting the possibility of another earthquake.
New Madrid seismic zone, we're uncertain about a lot of things, but what we know is that large earthquakes have happened here repeatedly in the past. They were really big, and they could really happen again in the future.
Could this lead to intense landshakes similar to those experienced in the 1800s? And could we be on the verge of witnessing one of the most catastrophic disasters in recent times? Join us as we unravel the devastating event that just happened in New Madrid that has everybody scared. The mystery of 1811's earthquake. On the cold morning of December 16, 1811, a strange event happened across the United States, making people scared and curious. The ground started shaking strongly, surprising even the experienced residents. In Asheville, North Carolina, people woke up because of the strange shaking, which was new for many who had never felt an earthquake before. Although the first shaking didn't cause much damage or deaths, it left a lasting impression on people. News of the event spread quickly, shared in local newspapers by people who saw it happen. What made this event stand out was not just that it happened, but that it affected a large area, from Naz and Charleston in the south to Washington, Pittsburgh, Detroit, and New York in the north. The shaking traveled far, like seismic activity from the UK to Greece.
Expect to have an awful lot of flooding, a lot of property damage, a lot of buildings down, a lot of people needing shelters, a lot of people needing rescue.
The shaking went on for almost 2 months until February of the next year. As it continued, people got more worried and wanted to know why it was happening. But back then, news traveled slowly, especially from faraway places to the big cities on the East Coast. As more reports came in, a worrying pattern emerged. The earthquakes were stronger the closer they were to the western frontier. The scariest reports came from the Mississippi Valley in the newly acquired Louisiana territory. In the winter of 1811 and 1812, there were over 2,000 earthquakes recorded, some very strong ones, in an area near New Madrid, Missouri. Even now, more than 200 years later, we still don't know why these earthquakes happened. Normally, earthquakes happen where tectonic plates move, mostly along the edges of these big pieces of the Earth's surface. But the earthquakes of 1811 and 1812 happened in the middle of a stable part of the Earth's surface. Scientists have spent a lot of time and money trying to figure out why this happened, to keep people safe, and to learn more about how the Earth works. The earthquakes in the New Madrid area have been studied a lot, teaching us about earthquakes that happen within a single tectonic plate. Since the late 20th century, we've been able to detect ongoing earthquakes in the New Madrid area, showing that the ground is still moving. Even though most people don't feel these small earthquakes, they alert us that the Earth is always changing. But it's not just New Madrid. Sometimes earthquakes happen unexpectedly in other parts of the continent, away from the usual places. Historic records show that big earthquakes, like the one in Virginia in 2011 or the one in Charleston in 1886, can happen in places where we least expect them. The fact that earthquakes keep happening in places that seem stable tells us we need to be ready for them. The United States Geological Survey, USGS, has tried to predict how likely it is for big earthquakes to happen in the New Madrid area, based on past earthquakes. These predictions show that there's a high chance of big earthquakes happening there in the future, which is a big challenge for keeping people and buildings safe. However, predicting earthquakes is hard, and these forecasts aren't always exact because earthquakes are complicated. As scientists keep studying the New Madrid area and other places where earthquakes happen unexpectedly, they're trying to make better models to predict earthquakes. This could help us prepare better for earthquakes in the future. These earthquakes set the stage for the tragic events we will uncover next. New Madrid Night of Silence. Before the unforgettable earthquakes shook the region, New Madrid was a relatively young part of the United States, having recently been integrated into the nation. The land surrounding New Madrid had an eventful history, passing between French and Spanish control before ultimately becoming part of the United States. The town itself was established in 1789 under Spanish rule, mainly settled by Americans who pledged allegiance to Spain as part of Spain's strategy to prevent American influence from spreading into their territory. The name New Madrid originates from this Spanish period, named in honor of the Spanish minister who facilitated the settlers' relocation. The Spanish sought to create a buffer of loyal American settlers to safeguard against the United States, intruding on Spanish-held Louisiana, and maintain control over trade routes along the Mississippi River. Despite challenges such as flooding and food shortages, the Spanish government offered generous land grants to encourage more Americans to move westward. By the early 19th century, New Madrid's population had grown significantly, making it a crucial settlement in the region. It became the busiest port between St. Louis and the Gulf Coast, essential for trade, and a primary stop for numerous boats traveling the Mississippi. In 1800, Spanish control of the region quietly ended when Spain secretly transferred Louisiana back to France. Facing conflicts in Europe and increasing interest in an American empire, Napoleon sold the vast territory to the United States in 1803 for $15 million, a landmark deal known as the Louisiana Purchase. This transition officially made New Madrid part of the U.S. in 1804, a change welcomed by its predominantly American residents. However, their joy was short-lived. Just 8 years later, New Madrid was devastated by a series of catastrophic earthquakes, which also destroyed other emerging settlements along the Mississippi. Looking into first-hand accounts from those who witnessed the earthquakes, offering a glimpse into the terrifying experience. One such narrative comes from William Pierce, who was navigating the Ohio and Mississippi rivers to New Orleans with a group of flatboats. Anchored near New Madrid, they were awakened at 2 a.m. by a violent shaking of their boats, initially mistaking it for colliding with a sandbar. Pierce's detailed description paints a clear picture of the chaos and fear they experienced. As they scrambled to the deck, they realized it was an earthquake causing the turmoil, confirmed by aftershocks lasting about 8 minutes. The power of the earthquakes was such that leaves on trees trembled and a large oak tree nearby snapped in half, its top falling toward the river. They faced a dangerous decision, whether to stay put in this unsafe place or risk navigating through the river filled with hazards. Ultimately, they chose to remain secure. As morning broke, they experienced another, even stronger earthquake, witnessing the ground splitting apart and trees being uprooted and thrown into the water with tremendous force. The earthquakes were accompanied by continuous booms, initially mistaken for the riverbanks collapsing. However, the truth was revealed during the fifth quake when volcanic eruptions occurred, discharging fiery material high into the air. Steams of air and water shot up from the river, throwing mud and debris, while ancient trees long submerged were thrown upwards. Throughout the day, the ground continued to shake, and explosions echoed like continuous thunder. The riverbed shifted constantly, and the water boiled ominously, posing a grave danger to their boat. The relentless destruction saw entire banks of the river collapsing, and even the oldest trees were violently uprooted and thrown into the river. The earthquakes had profoundly altered the landscape of the Mississippi Valley, leaving behind a scene of devastation and transformation. As we journeyed down, we witnessed widespread destruction and chaos, with small islands disappearing entirely. Astonishing Mississippi earthquake catastrophe. This scary story from December 16th reflects the experiences of many in the northern Mississippi Valley during that time. It marks the start of a long, tough time. Alongside many smaller shakes, 2 more big earthquakes happened, matching or even beating the first ones in strength. This series of events is remarkable because it involved a bunch of big earthquakes happening one after another, a rare thing caused by a complicated underground fault system. The second big shake hit on January 23rd, followed by the strongest one on February 7th of the next year. This last quake, estimated to be between 7.5 to 7.8 in strength, hit at the center of the New Madrid seismic zone. It was caused by the interaction between two major faults. The impact, especially on the Mississippi River, was really bad. During that time, the course of the Mississippi River was different from what we know today, and it's hard to figure out exactly what changed. After the quake, one side of the land went down while the other went up, making a noticeable height difference of about 20 feet. This change made huge rapids in the river at two different points, making the river, America's biggest, flow backward for nearly an hour. This surprising event allowed boats to sail upstream, going against the river's normal flow. A boatman's scary story vividly describes the mess of that day. He was tied up 13 miles above New Madrid when a roar woke him up. His boat shook a lot, trees fell everywhere, and he had to quickly let his boat go to avoid being crushed. Pushed upstream really fast, he struggled to control his boat against the strong wind. Finally, he came across a terrifying waterfall, stretching half a mile across the river, making it impossible to navigate. Through lots of effort and some luck, he survived. When he got to New Madrid, he found the town wrecked, underwater about 12 feet lower than before, and empty. The people, including those from nearby areas looking for safety, were living in rough camps outside the town. Their cries of sadness filled the air. Of almost 30 boats loaded with stuff, only his and one other made it through the chaos. Many boatmen weren't so lucky and died. New Madrid got hit hardest by the earthquake, being just 10 miles from the center. It was close to where the ground shook the hardest and where the Mississippi River got messed up by the Earth's violent movements. Eliza Bryan, a brave teacher who stayed in the town despite it almost being destroyed, gave a clear account of the scary events, especially during the last big shake. She remembers that on February 7th, early in the morning, the earth shook harder than ever before. At first, the river's water went away, leaving boats going to New Orleans stuck on dry land. But then the water suddenly came back, rising 15 to 20 feet and rushing over the banks. Afterward, it was really bad, with fish stuck on the banks and boat pieces all over the river. Sadly, one boat with a woman and her 6 kids got wrecked, and none survived. The land got ripped open during the earthquakes, with big areas sometimes covered in sand from lots of new cracks. Aftershocks kept happening every few minutes at first, then less often, but still for over 10 years. It took about a week for the river to clear enough for boats to safely go through again. To the east, where the land went down, floodwaters turned forested riverbanks into big, swampy areas. These would later become the site of a big Civil War battle and make a big lake that's still around today, showing the area's past with earthquakes. The size of these earthquakes was huge, causing the most damage in the thinly populated Mississippi Valley, but their effects were felt far away. The shakes were strong enough to hurt buildings over 500 miles away in Charleston, South Carolina. These earthquakes made Congress pass the first disaster relief bill, but it didn't help much, leading to lots of guessing and cheating and not giving much help to those affected. Even though these events were really serious and affected a lot of people, people quickly forgot about them. 50 years later, they were almost forgotten, with people only slowly learning about them in the second half of the 20th century. Unlike the earlier quakes, this one happened along a fold, which usually makes the ground shift upwards instead of sideways, unveiling Mississippi's geological secrets. When we ponder the past, especially when looking into historical natural disasters, we often wonder about the potential outcomes if such devastating events were to happen in our modern era. What kind of devastation could they wreak upon our world today? To truly understand the potential impact of such occurrences, it's essential to take a look into the geological makeup of the Earth beneath our feet. particularly in regions like the Mississippi Valley. This understanding is crucial because even without factoring in human elements such as infrastructure design or population density, the natural composition of this land significantly heightens the risk of seismic activity. Let's embark on a journey beneath the surface, imagining a vast expanse of sand stretching across the floodplain of the Mississippi River, extending hundreds of meters into the earth. This sand, a key player in the region's geological narrative, was not randomly deposited, but was rather brought here by two main forces. One of these forces is the Mississippi River itself, which, over thousands of years, has carried a variety of materials, sand, small rocks, and mud, from its origins in high mountainous regions to lower areas like the floodplain. As the river winds its way, it deposits these materials, gradually building up the floodplain. A remarkable example of this process is the Mississippi River Delta, which today is home to over 1 million people, including the vibrant city of New Orleans. Yet millennia ago, this expansive delta, larger than some countries, was still in the process of formation, shaped by the particles carried and deposited by the mighty river. The other major force shaping the geological landscape of the Mississippi Valley is the ocean. If we rewind the clock by approximately 80 million years, we would witness vast expanses of what is now the southern United States submerged beneath seawater. The region we now know as the Mississippi Embayment, near Memphis and New Madrid, experienced dramatic transformations, from being part of a mountain range to becoming a deep underwater basin, gradually filled with sediments from the Gulf of Mexico and the ancient Mississippi River. Over time, these sediments accumulated, forming layers of sand and clay, ultimately creating the immense sandpit that defines the region today. Exploring beneath the bustling city of Memphis, the largest urban center in this region, reveals a unique geological feature, a lack of solid rock. Instead, what lies beneath is a thick layer of loose, wet sand and mud, extending approximately 1 kilometer deep. Despite its potential hazards, this geological setup also offers benefits, such as serving as vast underground reservoirs, crucial for providing clean drinking water to around 1/3 of Memphis's residents. However, this abundance of water has also sparked disputes, as evidenced by a recent legal battle between Mississippi and Memphis over groundwater rights. Now, let's take a look into why this vast expanse of wet sand poses a significant concern during seismic events like earthquakes. Picture loose soil as a collection of tiny, independent beads that can shift independently from one another. This characteristic makes them highly susceptible to intensifying earthquake tremors compared to solid rock. The situation worsens when this soil becomes saturated with water. During an earthquake, the trapped water within the soil increases pore pressure, reducing the grip between soil grains and allowing them to shift more freely. This phenomenon, known as soil liquefaction, transforms solid ground into a substance resembling quicksand, leading to extensive structural damage. Soil liquefaction is a phenomenon observed in many significant seismic events worldwide, but the New Madrid seismic episodes stand out for their widespread and intense liquefaction. Historical accounts document instances of water and sand erupting from the Earth's surface in phenomena known as sand blows. These occur when pressure beneath the Earth's surface reaches a point where liquefied water and sand are forced up through cracks, forming rounded or oval mounds. The 2011 earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand, provided numerous examples of sand blows, highlighting the extensive soil liquefaction that occurred and contributing significantly to the vast damages incurred. As we investigate further, we encounter informative signs of seismic activity, holes and cracks in the ground, each bearing witness to the sudden and wild shaking that has shaped the geological landscape of the Mississippi Valley and beyond. Discovering hidden earthquake signs. When sand bursts forth from the ground, it reveals numerous small eruptions hidden below the earth or visible as pale spots in plowed fields, spreading across the area known as the Mississippian Embayment. This region is renowned for its signs of past disturbances. Some of these sandy eruptions are exceptionally large compared to the usual size, which is typically just a few meters across. However, in the New Madrid area, they can stretch to widths of 40, 50, or even 60 meters. The openings of these eruptions are almost a meter thick, indicating incredibly strong earthquakes caused them. Moreover, there's a picture taken nearly a century after these earthquakes showing a sand eruption resembling a massive blast hole. Earthquakes in other parts of the world, like India and Yellowstone, have also created similar sand explosions. Additionally, a significant earthquake in southern Italy in 1783 resulted in the deaths of over 30,000 people. In Spain, the remains of an ancient Roman city were discovered near Madrid, abandoned after a devastating earthquake forced inhabitants to rebuild elsewhere. Among the ruins, archaeologists found large craters caused by the earthquake, likely due to the ground turning to liquid beneath the city. Some of these craters were big enough to swallow entire rooms and were found under residential areas. Inside these ancient craters, researchers found many Roman tools, like knives and axes, suggesting offerings to the gods believed responsible for the earthquake. Returning to the New Madrid earthquakes, one notable aspect was how far away they were, even reaching New York City over 1,000 miles away. This widespread effect can be explained by the thickness of the North American plate in the east, including the area around New Madrid. The Earth's crust is much thicker and denser in the east compared to the west, carrying shock waves from earthquakes much farther. Let's compare what happens when two strong earthquakes hit different parts of our continent using a special map called a Did You Feel It map made by the United States Geological Survey. USGS. For a 5.7 magnitude earthquake in Greenville, California in 2013, feedback from people indicated areas of strong shaking, mainly around the earthquake's epicenter, with weaker shaking extending about 200 to 300 kilometers in every direction. In contrast, an earthquake of similar strength in the eastern United States, like the 2011 Virginia earthquake, caused intense shaking near the epicenter, damaging buildings significantly. The strong shaking reached cities like Washington and Baltimore, causing landslides as far as 250 kilometers away. Similarly, a 2016 earthquake in Oklahoma, close to the New Madrid seismic zone, was felt much further away due to the old and dense Earth's crust in the east. Understanding these geological characteristics is crucial because areas like the Mississippi Valley have soft, water-filled ground layers that amplify shaking. Moreover, the eastern United States is not as well prepared for earthquakes as places like California, making the potential for damage much higher. Is the New Madrid seismic zone a sleeping giant or a gentle giant, misunderstood by science and history alike? The potential for a massive quake in the heartland of America is a question worth considering. Geological mapping of New Madrid. Using advanced three-dimensional geological mapping, Roy Van Arsdale has carefully created a model of the subterranean world, aiming to uncover its mysteries. By combining a lot of data, including deep insights, Van Arsdale explains the mysterious terrain below us. Imagine the first view we see is a digital map of the land, with the Mississippi River floodplain spread across the screen. A gold star shows our exact location in Memphis, Tennessee, giving us a starting point for our exploration. Going deeper, scientists use sound waves to reveal the makeup of rocks and layers underground, capturing a snapshot of the Mississippi's underground world. Going 5 miles down, we find what's called the Precambrian surface, shown in many colors. But this old geology isn't still. It's broken by faults, shown in the model's detailed patterns. Surprisingly, seismic activity follows these faults, with 2 of them pointing towards Memphis and Shelby County. Moving to earthquake data, we look at earthquakes since 1995. Though they happen irregularly, when shown in a 3D projection, they look scattered until you turn the model. showing a clear pattern along a fault line. This line is the Reelfoot Fault, which is important despite being only 149 miles long compared to the huge San Andreas Fault. Don't think its size matters. Its seismic waves spread easily through the Midwest rock, making its tremors more powerful. Historical maps show how bad the 1811 earthquake was, with shaking felt over 350 miles from the epicenters on the New Madrid fault line, earning it the nickname Killer Fault. Ignoring its size would be a big mistake, as its power is more than just its length, making it a serious threat to the region's stability. As we dig into rock mapping, revealing mysteries under our feet, we move to a domain where predictions meet the accuracy of science, and one person's prediction sparks heated debates about earthquakes. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. In the center of New Madrid, people were woken up by a loud noise, shaking houses like giant footsteps. The ground shook as if it couldn't stay still. Pots made noise, pictures moved, and people got out of bed, hearts beating fast. Outside, neighbors gathered, wide-eyed and worried, talking quietly about the strange happening. Some said it felt like the world was tipping. Others insisted they heard a deep, scary noise from below. Fear spread quickly, affecting everyone in town. Rumors spread quickly, like birds in a storm. Was it an earthquake? A sign of worse things coming? No one was sure of what was happening, but everyone agreed that whatever just happened in New Madrid frightened everyone a lot. As morning came, the town stayed nervous, waiting for answers, holding on to each other for comfort. Yet, despite the fear, a feeling of togetherness grew. Strangers became friends, helping each other through the unsure times. In the end, the strange happening not only affected the land, but also the hearts of the people of New Madrid. Could it be that an earthquake is imminent, or a sign of the end time? Let us have your answer in the comment section. The earthquake that never happened. In everyday language, when regular folks toss around terms like prediction and forecast, it's often a loose game. But when scientists enter the scene, these words get a makeover. A prediction in the scientist's handbook is like a highlight of a missile throw, aimed at a specific time and place. They might boldly declare, expect an earthquake on the 2nd or 3rd of December. Meanwhile, a forecast is more like tossing dice, with probabilities and ranges. It's like saying, there's a chance, let's say 30%, of an earthquake in this region within the next 30 years. Imagine scientists conducting surveys, asking people how likely they feel an earthquake will shake things up around early December. Across 7 states, there's a buzz of concern, even if the ground stays steady for now. Enter Ivan Browning, the man of the hour, with his eyes set on putting New Madrid, Missouri, on the map. Rumors go about his forecast for a major quake on the New Madrid Fault. But what pushed Browning into the spotlight? Well, it's a tale woven with seismic events of the past. Think back to Loma Prieta in 1989, a quake that had America glued to their TV screens. It's the one where folks tuned in for the World Series, but ended up with a chilling reality check instead. Forget the game, the Bay Bridge is down, echoed through households, shaking hearts as much as the ground. Who's this Browning character anyway? He wasn't your typical seismologist. He was more of a jack-of-all-trades with a background in biology and a curious mind for meteorology. In October '89, he dropped a bombshell during a speech in San Francisco, predicting a quake to the south. And like wildfire, this prediction spread, fueled by the agitation of local news during their ratings sweeps. Suddenly, Browning's name was on everyone's lips, and high-tech satellite trucks were buzzing with the drama of one man's bold forecast. Back in 1811, it was the silence of the night, and the Earth decided to throw a party along the New Madrid Fault. Houses crumble, trees topple, and the Mississippi River takes a brief diversion. Luckily, not too many folks were around to witness the chaos firsthand. But did it leave a mark, with aftershocks rumbling on for weeks? Fast forward to the Browning saga of '89. His prediction may have been controversial, but it sparked a conversation among scientists. Suddenly, they found themselves pondering their role in such situations. How do you navigate the fine line between science and public fear? It was a wake-up call for the scientific community, prompting them to reevaluate their approach to earthquake forecasts. So, there you have it, a tale of two worlds colliding, where everyday language meets the precision of science, and where one man's prediction sets off a seismic ripple effect. It's a story that's as intriguing as it is cautionary, making it clear to us that when it comes to predicting the unpredictable, sometimes the ground beneath our feet isn't the only thing that shakes us to our core. Which of these earthquakes do you find the most intriguing? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. And if you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.